back.
I think we're back with Ted. So I think 273 people here still. That's great. And
left in high dudgeon. Good.
Welcome back, Ted. And can I remind people that Ted's excellent book, all the proceeds for that are going to the MCC Foundation, and Ted and Johnny have asked that if anyone wants to make a donation in praise of today, the MCC Foundation or the Arundel Castle Cricket Foundation would be worthy recipients. But with that, I'll pass you back to Johnny to continue the conversation with Ted.
Just to say that it's only my personal earnings from the book, not because I have a ghostwriter and he gets his money and the publishers get their money. It's only my bit that has gone to the MCC Foundation. Quite a lot of friends, I've twisted their arm. I send them a nice signed copy and then they send nice big checks.
That's marvelous.
So it worked out quite well.
Well, that's very generous, Ted. I think where we were, I don't know whether you want to go back to Australia, 62, 63. We were just about to chat about the MCC tour and the nature of that.
I was actually in the MCC committee meeting.
Yeah.
When items came up on the agenda, the Australia tour, and item 4B is manager.
Yeah.
And people were saying, no, I don't know how many people are really available for this, etc. And the conversation hadn't started, or His Grace the Duke of Norfolk, who was sitting there, said, well, I've got a bit of time. I'd quite like to go. And there was a deathly hush. And he was the first Earl of the land. And the chairman just said, oh, thank you very much, my lord. Next question.
Ted, I think that's the most wonderful story. It's wonderful. And so the Duke
enormously to the tour. We had Alex Dexter, who was the day-to-day manager, and gave us our expenses and that sort of thing. But the Australians were so riveted with, with his lordship and his eminence, etc., and which they either rather liked or didn't like. But it meant that the cricket tour was on the front page of the papers. It wasn't on the sports page. never had such publicity in the history of the game, I would think.
And how did the Duke and Alec get on with their different management tasks?
Well, I don't think. I mean, he was a good friend of mine, Duke of Norfolk. I mean, I knew him very well because he was also president of Sussex County Cricket Club, and he'd always been very generous. And I used to go up to the castle a bit, spent a few nights at the castle. And he didn't really have any sort of defined task, really, except to be around the place. And it was really nice having him.
Well, it sounds to me the perfect role for a manager, really.
I think the idea. Good at that. Yes, I think it would be.
And did you have a vice captain on that tour?
Oh, I'm sure we did. I can't remember who it would have been.
No.
Colin Cowdrey, I would think.
Probably. Yeah,
I would think.
How interesting. But while you were doing the will signing, we had a chat, at least I did. I chatted about the very first time this is a bit self-indulgent, but I actually first saw you play for real live, which was in the final of that first one-day limited over tournament final at the end of 1963 between Sussex and Worcestershire, where Sussex triumphed. and it was a wettish, dampish day. I remember sitting at the nursery end, but it was the most vivid occasion of my life at that stage.
I don't think I got any runs. It was a low-scoring match.
Yeah.
If you go to Lords, you expect to have a nice green top for our Sussex seamers, and it was a Turner, and Worcester had 4 international spinners, so we weren't favourite by any means.
So it had been raining building up to the match, presumably.
Yeah, I don't remember. All I remember was being horrified.
Yeah.
To go out when we went out to bat, to find that the ball was, turning in quite liberally right from the word go, and we'd only got sort of supposedly one sort of half spinner.
Yeah. But then, Ted, you took quite an interest, as far as I can remember, and it certainly comes into your book, in that new concept of limited over one day, the very first one day limited over tournament. And Sussex became extremely expert at it, and you had tactics which appeared to suit the game.
Yes, well, it seemed quite clear to me right from the beginning.
Yeah.
I don't know, today with people moving around the crease and huge heavy bats and everything, my theory may not work. But I often hear the commentators still today, when it gets tight, they say, pitch it up, pitch it up, pitch it up and straight, pitch it up and straight. Every time it's short, it goes over mid-wicket. And that's all we did. I told my bowlers, I said, you've only got one thing to think about, and that I want every ball hitting the stumps. If it's wide, it's a bad ball. If it's short and going over the top, it's a bad ball. I want every ball hitting the stumps. That's all you've got to think about. I will set the field, because every batsman, as we know, some are better one side of the wicket than others, but we kept 2 men posted very close in, so they couldn't steal any singles.
Yeah.
And we used to choke them out. And this is my little story. In the summer prior, leading up, when you were playing away at different grounds, people were talking about the one day. And we went to Essex. Trevor Bailey was there, and he immortalized the conversation one day by saying, my dear chap, if I can put my fielders where I want, no man on earth is going to get more than 2 runs and over off me. Anyway, we were drawn against Essex, and I think we took him for about 10 and over.
But I mean, for a couple of years.
The length, they now call it in the slot, don't they?
Yeah.
Bang, out of the park.
Certainly for a couple of years. I mean, Sussex, I was so proud of Sussex. I mean, you won it in '63 and in '64, and I felt that it was our trophy, really. And you obviously took it, and Sussex took it to heart, and took it probably more, I'm guessing, more seriously than some of the other counties. But Ted, do you think you would have been interested now, had it moving forward, in the very much shorter form of the game that is exploding all over the world? Or do you think that is, well, how do you feel about the very short game now that is so popular throughout the world?
Well, I was astonished the other day to see that there is a 10 over competition.
Yeah.
So what next? 20 balls, 30 balls.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's good fun.
Yeah.
great big heavy bats and quite small boundaries, the sixes flow, and it's good for, and I do like to go, and you know, if I'm really keen on one team to win, then I enjoy watching. So I love watching England play.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, well, that's lovely. And but I mean, interestingly, after 1964 and another Sussex triumph in the then Gillette Cup, what I think is fascinating is that you have a look at all sorts of different areas of life, and you had quite a bit of a dabble in politics in '64 with the Cardiff election, with the general election in '64 in Cardiff. Was that quite an exciting time?
Well, it arose because there was no tour.
Yeah.
In '63-4, the election was late '64, wasn't it? Yes.
I think so. I only know it from your book. You write about it endearingly in the book.
There was no tour, so I was sort of rather twiddling my thumbs at home.
Yeah.
And the doorbell rang, and it turned out to be the chairman of the Cardiff South East Conservative Association.
Yes.
And he made his pitch. He said that they'd just lost a brilliant local candidate who'd done wonders for the place, but they'd never managed to shift Jim Callaghan, who was the resident MP.
Yeah.
The great Jim Callaghan, the only ever holder of all the offices of state, and became a good friend of mine, incidentally. So that was a plus.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, I've really got nothing else to do, and it'll be a good experience. And so it was.
I love that. But you did pretty well, didn't you?
Which is, I got 17,000 votes or something like that. So,
well, I think that's a triumph to get. If 17,000 votes, if 17,000 people in Wales vote for you, I think you're doing jolly well.
I thought it was pretty good too.
But Ted, you didn't think on the back of having a go down in Cardiff, because I mean it was a great effort. You didn't have you didn't want to have another go somewhere else, perhaps more hopeful.
Oh, I learned my lesson by then.
Yeah. I mean, because lots of very famous people have failed at the first attempt and then moved to slightly more fertile ground and been successful. So you could have been.
Yeah, I don't think it was really my strength. I wasn't batting to my strength. I was on a bit of a turning pitch there.
Well, I still think 17,000 votes. I mean, most people would think that was terrific. Not a bad effort. But the next year you had this horrible car accident and sort of more or less, I think, retired from first-class cricket then anyway. But you did make a remarkable comeback in 1968. And
yeah.
I think everyone would be interested to hear how that came about.
Well, Colin Cowdrey, who was captaining England then,
yeah,
I was playing Sunday cricket. I was playing for the Cavaliers.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I was fit and healthy and making plenty of runs on Sundays.
Yeah.
And I got a call from Colin saying, look, we're in real trouble because we've already had 2 or 3 injured batsmen. We've already picked 2 newcomers. And if we get another injury, I really don't want somebody who's new to the game. You know, what about you what about you playing, you see? So I said, well, what do you propose? He said, well, the only thing is, you know, you'd have to go and play a county game to enable us to select you. It wouldn't be right if they selected you from outside the England game. And so I said, okay, and off I went down to Hastings against Kent. And I mean, I was fitting and well, and I was playing well, and I was confident.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything to lose, and I just happened to make 200. That's all.
Oh, that's a marvelous throwaway comment. I love that. And who was playing? I mean, was Derek Underwood playing for Kent?
He was.
Was he?
He was, and he'd already taken a couple of wickets.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing was turning, etc. But
yeah,
I always tease unders.
Yeah.
I said, well, I never reckoned you could bowl anyway, unders. Which
so you went off to so Colin got you to play in this match at Hastings against Kent for Sussex. So it wasn't so much a Sussex thing, and from that you then played a couple of Test matches.
Yes. So
yeah,
I'm at 200. Then they had to pick me, really.
Yeah.
I was a natural choice. I didn't do particularly well in the games. I got 20s and 30s. I didn't do anything very much. But it was lovely for me because I played amazing last game at the Oval when we won in the last sort of 5 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
And I'm in the great photograph of the winning wicket, the umpire putting his finger up with Underwood bowling, I may say.
Yes.
And all 11 fielders are in the picture, and everybody is turned to the umpire. Somebody padded up to an unders quicker ball.
Yeah.
He did this and hit him smack in front. So all 11 of us went, ah! Won the game.
Can you remember which position in around the bat you were fielding in?
Yeah, it was forward short leg.
Oh, it's marvelous. Marvelous.
On the pitch, right in front, like that.
Yeah.
I spun round like that to appeal to the umpire.
Yeah. No, everyone can see that picture. What fun! And that was that more or less it in terms of first class stroke Test match cricket?
Definitely, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
because
yeah. I'd finished.
Yeah.
I mean, I may have played Sunday. I think I played Sunday games for Sussex, didn't I?
Yeah.
In the
interesting.
John Barclay League.
Yeah.
I think I played in that for a bit.
I'll tell you, Ted, in the book, all sorts of areas which were fascinating, but one of the most fascinating and unusual for me was your wonderful adventure in your flying for a start, and then your adventure with Susan and your then, quite, I imagine, youngish children on your adventure to Australia in your aeroplane, and how that all came about. And I mean, that is boys' own stuff, I think, really.
Well, I rather agree. But what sort of prompted it? I was enjoying my flying anyway.
Yeah.
You know, I had a series of nice single-engine planes, getting a little bit bigger all the time.
Yes.
And I was actually I was flying, not going anywhere particularly, and I suddenly realized that all the planes for the London-Sydney Air Race, and that was a year before the tour, they were all gathering at Biggin Hill, famous wartime airfield. So I thought, oh, I'm going to go and have a look at these. So I just dropped in there and parked up, and then I walked along the whole line of all the aeroplanes that were all gathering for the air race. And there were military jets, and there were nice twin engine Beaches and some airplanes, and one or two pretty ropey ones.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed having a look at them, and I had no intention of getting involved. But I went to the tower, which you do if you're a light aircraft pilot, and checked out, told them where I was going, etc. And at that moment, I heard a panic-stricken Australian voice on the telephone nearby, complaining that he desperately needed a instrument-rated pilot because there was a flu epidemic in England, and he had lost his instrument-rated pilot. He was one crewman short.
Yeah.
And in true Dexter fashion, I thought, well, I'm not doing much at the moment. So I said, excuse me, I'm instrument-rated. Would you like me to come along for the ride? And he said, yeah, sure. So I joined them, and it turned out to be just about the crankiest old aeroplane of the whole bloody lot.
Yeah.
And but there we are, and we actually took off from Gatwick for the air race.
Yes.
And stormy, clouds and storms and everything, when an instrument rating was pretty important. So I had control, and I was flying the thing, and I was talking to Gatwick, and they handed me over to the French controller just as getting over the channel. And I went down to the radio. I'd had no chance to really check it all out. And it turned out that they hadn't got first class 1 radio. So they hadn't got all the frequencies.
Yeah.
I couldn't speak to the French controller. So I said to Maury Blake, who was the leader of their team, just two of them, I said, I'm sorry, we've got to go back because I can't be flying blind in storm in French airspace with no contact with the ground. No, come on, this is an air race, for Christ's sake, keep going, you know. No, we've got to go back, I'm afraid. So we went back and waited for the better weather the following day.
Yes.
Now a day behind everybody else. And we weren't really racing anyway in a funny little single engine flivver.
Yes.
But we then got to Rome, and we had a fuel stop in Rome, and I went to the toilet.
Yes.
And my aim was random. I was shaking so much. And I suddenly realized that I'd got a high temperature, and I'd got the flu from back home.
Yeah.
But I felt indebted to them to an extent. So I said, well, look, you know, I'm feeling awful, but
Yeah.
I'll sit in the back of the plane and I'll come with you for a bit and see how far I get. And I got to Karachi.
Yeah.
And I was really sick as a dog.
Yeah. Oh.
So I said, sorry, boys, you're on your own now. And the weather's better now. Not sort of English heavy weather. They were going to be all right. They'd got themselves there, so they'd get themselves back again.
Yeah.
So I fell out and I got a British Airways flight back, arrived back in England and was diagnosed with acute pneumonia.
Gosh.
Just as well I cut and came back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Christmas Day in bed with pneumonia. I was very popular at home. And but it always rankled with me.
Yeah.
That I'd never done the whole trip, which I'd intended to do.
Yeah.
So in 71, I suddenly thought, well, what about flying down with the children? And that's how. So I bought myself a twin, got myself a twin rating.
Yes.
And then off we went. It was lovely. It was a great time.
That I think it's marvelous. I think the thing that I love you saying both on your politics with Jim Callaghan and with the flying, that just at the time you didn't really have very much going on, so you thought it would be rather fun to have a go at these things. And I think that is a wonderful spirit and a different spirit that most people probably wouldn't have that sort of spirit, really.
One thing fortunately, I was always making a bit of money from the newspaper.
Yeah, yeah.
Contract, which were quite good. They kept, Susan was earning money.
Yeah, yeah.
We were quite, reasonably well off.
Yeah.
A bit.
And Ted, before we go, I'd just love to very quickly ask you about something that I know is very, very close to your heart right from the beginning. I think back in Italy and onward would be your golf and how much you've loved it, and also your expertise at your golf. And I sort of half wondered whether you would ever have even thought, of choosing golf in a way rather than cricket as your absolute number one focus of sport.
Well, I think the first decision I had to make, I think it was my second year at the university.
Yeah.
I played some golf for the university by then in the spring term. And I'd made waves. I think I played in the President's Putter. That's right, and I got in the semi-final or something. And
yeah,
the freshman, and I was a pretty hot player. I was just incredibly long. I don't know what it was that made me incredibly long, but I was. I don't think I ever played with anybody who was longer than I was. And in those days, the Walker Cup, the amateur, not like the Ryder Cup now, is so important. But then, amateur sport was proper stuff.
Yeah.
And the amateur Walker Cup selectors actually published a list of names to whom they were sending their fixture lists that they would be at all these various amateur meetings with a view to selecting the Walker Cup team.
Yeah.
So my name got mentioned in dispatches, as it were, as a golfer. And at that moment I thought, well, no, that's silly. I'm going to be playing cricket. So that was,
it
was the open and shut case. I didn't consider it.
Yeah.
Later on, when I was finished my cricket and I was wondering what the hell I was going to do, I thought, well, perhaps I better try professional golf. But there were so many hurdles in the way of that it was just, well, I didn't. I don't think I was quite you've got to have a particular temperament, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Very players who never quite make it.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? I suppose I obviously know nothing about professional golf, but professional anything takes a massive commitment, and also whether it would have taken something of the charm and joy of playing away from it. I don't know how you'd feel about that.
It didn't take me long, but I did go and talk about it with then
Yeah.
secretary of the PGA. Happened to be one of the Bywater brothers, and the other Bywater brother was my father's solicitor. So he was a friend of
Yeah.
his. And but he guided me gently away from the idea. He was doing me a good turn, I think.
Yeah.
I can see where you're coming from, but just on balance,
Yeah.
or it's quite right for you. So for
Well,
one, took some advice.